Hello, it is March 22nd, 2026, and today is the 33rd day of Lent. It's Sunday, so went to church first I got up at like 6:10, got ready, and then did an hour of stillness meditation, and then after that, went straight to the church, and this morning was Next Gen Takeover Sunday. So it was all the kids and youth did all the service elements. They had a kids choir, and one of the teenagers led one of the songs and co-led, I guess, the others. And then some kids did the announcement portion, and they made a announcement video, and then a few of them got up and talked about the mission trip they just went on to Mission Arlington. And then the youth pastor spoke, and then kids into the service. Oh yeah, kids served communion, and so that's my personal favorite part, is the kids serving communion. But all went well, and yeah, it was a good morning, good energy. It's pretty funny, like there's so many more kids and parents who go to first service, like way like a lot more kids go to first service, and the first service parent crowd, they are so unresponsive essentially, and second service, which is way less kids, they're like just so much more responsive and loud, and like engage with, I don't know, the service in just a different way. I mean, it was like when the kids were sharing their mission trip stories, it was like first service, each kid would answer the question, and it was silence the whole time. The kid would stop talking, hand the mic off, and they would each kind of answer the question. And then they clapped, at the end. But second service, it was like after every kid gave their answer, they, got applause and amens. And it's just funny how different the response of the two services are. And then after church, I ran home and changed. My food was delivered today, so I waited for that. And I guess just for the record, one thing I haven't talked about on here is I get my meals delivered, like prepackaged, like microwave meals, because I do not cook. It brings me zero joy to cook. And food in general, I mean, I like eating and I like good tasting food, but I would never win a fight with somebody who considers himself a foodie. I'm not. I don't think I would be considered a foodie. It's more sustenance, and I want it to be like I would like to enjoy myself. But just after divorce, like started grocery shopping a little bit, trying to figure that out. And then was eating out, and it just became where I tried a thing called Factor, which they send like, I don't know, 10 to 20 meals every week, depending on how many you choose. And I did that for a little bit, and then I tried a few others, and I landed on using Cook Unity. And what I found is that if I order, I think it's 16 meals, and they show up, and then I freeze half of them and put half of them in the fridge, and I skip every other week's order. And so the combined, so by ordering more meals, it gets the shipping cost down, and by ordering more meals, it gets the cost per meal down. And so it makes it where it's under $12, a little over $11 per meal, which is averages out to where it's cheaper than eating out. If I ate McDonald's every day, it's not, but then I'm also eating McDonald's every day. So these are a lot healthier meals. And if I was eating as healthy out, most of the time that's going to have to include a tip, and be hard pressed to find that it would be on average less than $12. So saves me money in that way. Grocery shopping, for one, that is a whole thing. And it's like if I meal prepped and ate the same thing for a week, that could get the cost down. But then I'm also eating the same thing every day, which I am fine with on occasion. But yeah, what I have, it brings me much joy to not have to worry about it and not have to think about it, and to not have to pay. It's cheaper than what I was doing, which was essentially just eating out every day. And it's healthier than eating out every day. And it is cheaper and healthier than what I would end up cooking every day. So my meals showed up today, is why I'm thinking about it. I had to wait on them to arrive before I left to go to Mercury Lounge. Also, just to end that train of thought, I just have these meals in my refrigerator. My refrigerator and freezer are literally empty. Nothing is in there except for these meals. And I open it and I grab one. I peel the corner of the plastic. I put it in the microwave and hit 2, and then hit start. It adds 30 more seconds. So it's 2. And with 2 button hits, it's added 2.5 minutes, and it starts. And then when it's done, I eat it, and then I wash a fork. It obviously has a lot of single-use items. They're not plastic, but it is single-use. So, there is that aspect of it. But I think I'm net zero whenever it comes to waste, because I'm not a consumer. I don't buy frivolous things. I don't buy my clothing. It's like all of it, it balances out. It may be even more than balances out. Then I went to Mercury Lounge with Jackson, and I don't know, the energy was a little off today. I was glad to be there and glad to have the conversation I did, but ultimately it cost me $20 to get in. I got 2 Topo Chicos with a $2 tip, $5 a piece, so $30 for 2 hours. I wouldn't say it was worth it today, but. And then I ran and I did an errand because I needed deodorant, and I'm about out of hair styling thing, so I went ahead and picked that up, which I got 2 sticks of deodorant, 1 hairstyling putty, and it was like $52, $54. It's wild. Deodorant is a racket. It's crazy how much they charge for it. There's no way. I mean, the profit margin on that has to just be huge. Um, yeah, and then I came here and now I'm recording this. So I do feel like, I know this is just something. I only have this one tank top, or I guess technically I have two tank tops. I've read one, but um, I changed into this, and then it, like, I basically sat in the shade, and I didn't stay the whole time, and I didn't really get all whatever, and so I just had the thought that, like, I wasted this wear. Its summer debut wasn't what I was hoping for. Its summer debut, but I've been watching The Chosen season 5, and it's the Holy Week season, and I've never seen it, but I actually need to go back and watch season 4. But they're hour long episodes, so, and I was really wanting to watch the Holy Week season because we are now upon Holy Week. It is this next Sunday, 7 days away from it, 6 days away from it, and would it be 7 or 6? Because it's the 7th day, so 7 days. Anyways, I've been wanting to watch it, but something that was in the episode I watched last night is Jesus cursing the fig tree, which in Holy Week, it's Fig Tuesday, and I just seen in the show, it's like they're traveling from Jerusalem back to, I don't know what town it is, Bethany or something, and to get out of Jerusalem for a couple days. And on the way, Jesus is hungry, and he stops at a fig tree and to eat. But the fig tree doesn't have any fruit because it's not fig season. And then Jesus curses the fig tree and says, "May you never produce fruit again." And every story in the Bible has a reason. Jesus is the archetype of the character and nature of God. So it just got me questioning of, like, I don't really understand this part, and I don't really understand the story of, like, how does Jesus is hungry, he goes to the tree to eat, there is no fruit, but there wouldn't, it's not that tree's time to have fruit, and then it's cursed that may you never produce fruit again. It seeming out of just hangry, like Jesus is just hungry and he lashes out at the tree. And it's, what does that reveal about the character and nature of God? How does that fit into the grand narrative of the story of God? What is the parable that it's, the allegory that it is trying to teach us? These are questions I have. Let's ask Claude together. See what we get. In the story of Jesus in Holy Week, he stops and curses a fig tree. What is the purpose of this story, and what do we know about it theologically of why this fig tree was cursed, and what is it saying about the nature of God? Oh. I guess maybe Claude on the computer doesn't have the talking version, which I think would be more interesting in this context. So, in the story of Jesus and in Holy Week, he stops and curses a fig tree on his way out of Jerusalem. What does this story mean theologically? What does it tell us about the character and nature of God?
Right. That's a really rich passage. So Jesus curses the fig tree because it has leaves but no fruit. It looks fruitful from a distance but isn't. Most theologians read this as a kind of enacted parable about Israel's spiritual condition at that moment. Outwardly religious, lots of temple activity and ritual, but lacking the fruit of justice, mercy, and genuine devotion that God actually desires. The tricky theological part is what it says about God's character. On one level, it can feel harsh or arbitrary. Why curse a tree for being out of season? But deeper down, I think it's about accountability and consequence. God isn't detached from the world. He engages with it, calls things to account for what they claim to be. There's a kind of ruthlessness there, but it's the ruthlessness of someone who actually cares enough to demand authenticity, rather than just accepting performance. It also suggests something about God's relationship to creation, that fruitfulness matters, that there's a purpose to things, and pretense gets exposed. In Holy Week especially, it's about the urgency of the moment. The kingdom is here, and Jesus is calling for real transformation, not just surface-level religiosity. What draws you to that passage right now? Are you wrestling with it for something you're working on at City Church, or is it more personal curiosity?
Well, it's Holy Week, and in Holy Week, it's Fig Tuesday. And also, I've been watching the TV show The Chosen, and in the episode that I just watched, they have the scene where he curses the fig tree that's out of season, and just personally curious about what theologians make of this story, because it seems as though Jesus is just hungry on the way, and in his anger, caused by the hunger, he curses a tree that wouldn't it would it's not going to be fruitful because it's out of season. And so I understand the parable or the allegory of the appearance of fruitfulness but not actually producing fruit, and what that can teach us. But because it was never supposed to have fruit in this instance, that's what has me intellectually curious.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes it genuinely puzzling, right? You're hitting on the tension that scholars have grappled with for centuries. Jesus knows the tree is out of season. He's omniscient, so he's not actually mistaken about agriculture. He curses it anyway, which means the hunger and the anger aren't really about the hunger and anger, if that makes sense. Some scholars argue Jesus is making a point through what we might call performative contradiction. He's deliberately doing something that seems unjust or irrational to make the injustice or irrationality visible and urgent. It's shock theology. Like the tree becomes a mirror for how we ourselves respond to impossible demands or seem blameless when actually we're complicit in a system that's failing. But honestly, the cleanest theological reading I've encountered is this. The fig tree isn't actually innocent just because it's out of season. Israel knew better. They had the law, the prophets, centuries of calling toward fruitfulness. So even in the off-season, there's a kind of culpability. You should still be oriented toward bearing fruit, even if circumstances make it impossible right now. The tree's naturalness doesn't excuse its barrenness. That said, if you're looking for deeper theological wrestling with this, you might find it more in the parable Jesus tells right after it, the one about the vineyard owner giving the fig tree one more year with special care. That version suggests mercy alongside judgment. Are you thinking about how to preach or teach this for Holy Week?
Yeah, so that makes sense. The fig tree it represents Israel, and Israel and the religious elite and the Pharisees all having the appearance of fruitfulness, and there's no excuse for them to not be bearing fruit. Having fruit stored even in the off season, but they are barren and fruitless, and the evidence of that being that they literally murdered Jesus. So the parable after that of the landowner. Hmm. Can you give me the summary of what the parable of the landowner is?
So in Luke's version, sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
I didn't say anything. Can you just repeat what you were going to say?
Right, yeah. So in Luke's version, a landowner has a fig tree in his vineyard that hasn't produced fruit for 3 years. He tells his vineyard keeper to cut it down. It's taking up space and resources for nothing. But the keeper says, "Give me 1 more year. Let me dig around it, fertilize it, give it special care. If it bears fruit next year, great. If not, then we'll cut it down." It's a story about patience and cultivation, but also about limits. Mercy has a season, but it's not infinite. There's an implicit warning: respond to the care being given, or there will be consequences. So, paired with the fig tree curse, you get both sides: immediate judgment and a call to fruitfulness, but also the offer of 1 more chance with intentional investment in your transformation.
Yeah, that's something just to wrestle with, of like the immediate judgment part, because in the story of God and in the character and nature of God, it seems as though God is infinitely merciful. The forgiveness 77 times 77, or 7 times 77, and grace upon grace upon grace. But I suppose this is specifically not is talking about religiosity and people who know better, not people who are not people who are lost, not people who are lost sheep that the shepherd goes searching for, but the shepherd himself losing his sheep. Or
Oh man, yeah. You're nailing the real tension there. God's infinite mercy. Right, exactly. So it is a totally different posture. With the lost sheep, the shepherd searches. With the fig tree and the vineyard, that's directed at the institution, the people who are supposed to be bearing fruit, the ones who have been given everything and are just performing religiosity instead. So maybe the immediacy of judgment isn't about God's mercy being limited, but about what accountability looks like when you're entrusted with responsibility. The shepherd's patience with the lost is boundless, but the judgment on those who know better, the religious establishment, the ones claiming to represent God, that's sharper. It's almost like you get grace upon grace, but that grace comes with an implicit demand. If you're being cultivated, you need to actually grow fruit, not just look the part. It's not cruelty. It's the only kind of love that makes sense for institutional religion. You can't infinitely tolerate people distorting God's character for power and status while actual sheep are scattered and lost. Does that sit differently with you?
yeah, so that makes sense. I didn't realize that Claude was still listening on that last one, but might as well listen to the answer. Um, yeah, it's like the blaspheming the Holy Spirit, being the only thing that is um, written as unforgivable. That and meaning using the name of the Holy Spirit, claiming things to be the Holy Spirit that are not, and claiming things to be God that are not, assigning things, using the Lord's name in vain, of using God's name to justify things that are not of God at all, things that are way outside the character and nature of God, but using God to justify it. Those types of things receive instant judgment. And yeah, peacocking around, trying to pretend as though one is fruitful, and I guess it's also probably a parallel with Judas, because he's dealing with Judas there at the same time, a literal disciple who darkness, self-interest has taken over, and his heart no longer belongs to God, and is playing the part, but his fruit has soured. Is kind of that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. And let's see if I'm thinking this also has a parallel with Judas, and where Judas is in the story, of being lost to darkness, but not yet. And then they pass the fig tree, and then Judas is then without God.
Whoa, yeah, that's a really sharp observation. Judas is right there in that sequence, isn't he? He's in the inner circle, been given everything, witnessed everything, and he's choosing complicity with the system instead of transformation. He's not a lost sheep. He's embedded in the religious machinery that's killing God's purposes. So the fig tree curse, Judas's betrayal, the temple cleansing, they're all part of the same moment. Jesus is calling out what happens when you have proximity to the kingdom. You've been cultivated with grace, and you choose appearance and comfort over fruit. With Judas especially, there's that awful tragedy of it. He was offered transformation and chose darkness instead. Not because he was lost and couldn't be found, but because he was right there and turned away. It's almost like the fig tree becomes a prophecy of what's about to happen with Judas, not in a predictive way, but thematically. Both are about being in the vineyard, so to speak, both given opportunity, both failing to produce the fruit they were meant to. That's haunting when you sit with it during Holy Week. Are you thinking about how to weave this into teaching?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's making it more sense to me now. So, yeah, glad we explored that together. Because I was just thinking about what does the fig tree have to say? It's in there for a reason. It's part of the story for a reason. What does it have to say in the grand scheme? And it's not about judgment, but it is in that. Yeah, once you've been cultivated by grace, and then if you take that for granted, and pervert it, use it for your own, or do it for the appearance, and then seek your own kingdom while using the guise of his kingdom, you will be cursed.